vamos a ver esto, va. A ver lo que queda por salir este año. Veo el juego este chino de la chavalita pelirrosa, el Indiana Jones y el Marvel Overwatch.
Ho, 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 and holy crap, it is almost 2025. Not sure how that happened, but here we are.
Vale.
Before we start looking ahead to next year, though, 2024 still has a few more video games left at the bottom of its stocking. So many, in fact, we felt it was worth making a whole video about.
Uy, el Anton Blast.
Here are December 2024's biggest game releases.
Ok. Incluso algún Shadow Drop seguro habrá en los Game Awards. 100%, vaya.
Anyway, let's talk about video games.
Vale.
On December 3rd, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete is taking Nintendo's free-to-play mobile entry in the hit franchise and making it pay-to-play, or rather, pay once and then play all you want.
No me interesa.
Transactions offline if you so choose. So basically, it's a array of friends with you, at least until you piss them off by hitting them
no se ve mal para ser de móvil, la verdad.
at their campsite. Still on the 3rd on Switch and PC is Anton.
Este tiene pintón, El Anton Blast tiene muy buena pinta, tío. Tiene gráficos de Game Boy Advance, literalmente. Este pinta guapísimo.
Blast, in which case Demolition's expert Dynamite Anton must retrieve his collection of spirits from Satan, who stole them because he was jealous of Anton's beautiful.
Este pinta muy bien.
It sounds bonkers, but it looks like Wario Land with lots of destruction, which you'd expect from a Demolition's expert named Dynamite. Still in the 3rd is Go Home Annie, which sounds like somebody forgetting the lyrics to Smooth Criminal or misquoting Watto the Toydarian junk dealer. But it is in fact a nice healthy dose of psychological horror. Look for that on PC.
Pinta guapo, ¿no? Pintaba guapo ese. Muy rollo Play 0 con la camarita y tal, estaba chulo. Este me la pena, la verdad.
On December 5th, the global open beta kicks off for Delta Force.
Vale.
This was formerly titled Delta Force Hawk Ops, but it thankfully changed its name before everyone started calling it Hawk Twops. This one looks like the closest thing to a new battlefield we'll be getting for the foreseeable future, featuring large-scale multiplayer matches with extremely realistic military hardware and very destructible environments.
Vale.
I really hope this one delivers. That'll be hitting PC first and eventually making its way to PS5 and Xbox Series later on. If you want something with lots of explosions but considerably less realism, there's also Entropy.
Vale, una copia más de Vampire Survivors.
Series in PC. This is a roguelite shmup where you're a frog with guns who rides around on a big robot.
Pereza.
Works for me.
I'd like to go on record as being opposed to the use of violence for purposes of conflict resolution. However,
if you don't want to shoot anything and rather run around collecting pretty dresses and stuff, Infinity Nikki will turn you loose in a whimsical.
Ojo este, se ve bonito, tío. Se ve muy bonito el Infinity Nikki.
Than the last. That's on PS5 and PC. If you want a game about people with pretty anime hair and a whimsical.
El Fantasian.
Rather just do some good old fashioned.
A ver, este quiero jugarlo por el tema de los dioramas y demás, pero la puta es que sale en inglés, tío. Me jode, porque este me encantaría probarlo.
Turn-based battling, well, keep an eye out for Fantasian Neo Dimension. This is an enhanced version of the formerly Apple Arcade exclusive JRPG developed by Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi.
Que no esté en español es una putada, tío.
To create a new emotional role-playing narrative after revisiting FF6. Though it's also entirely possible that Tim Cook drove up outside his house in a dump truck full of money and leaned on the horn while yelling, "Make us a new Final Fantasy for the iPhone!" I can't prove that actually happened, but you also can't prove that it didn't happen, so let's just agree to disagree. In any case, Fantasian was well received when it came to iOS, and I'm glad it's finally getting a new lease on life for platforms that actually have buttons.
Vale.
Still that day, Behemoth comes to all the latest VR headsets, which is that
el VR2
Colossus-like from the folks behind The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. That's pretty wild, but Stranger
Pinta
Things
tocho este,
VR, including Stranger Things VR, which already came out on MetaQuest, but is now coming to PC and PSVR 2 as well. Oddly enough, that one has you playing as Vecna, and you'll be tormenting a bunch of preteens from the upside down. That's kind of weird, but hey, props to the devs for trying something new. Speaking of trying something new, Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop is a puzzle game where you fix spaceships for cartoon animals, which is intriguing enough of a premise, and that is coming to Switch, Xbox Series, PS5, and PC on the 5th as well. By December 6th, a lot of people's wallets are probably hurting even more than they already were, but good news, there's a big, shiny, free-to-play game dropping that day. Marvel Rivals, the team-based hero shooter featuring a roster of 27 heavily overhauled versions of iconic superheroes and supervillains, plus Jeff the Land Shark.
Interesante.
That same day, Path of Exile 2's early access period kicks off.
Vale, esto a la gente le va a volar la puta cabeza el BUEN, a la gente le va a volar la puta cabeza.
Marvel Rivals and Path of Exile 2 are both on PC as well as Xbox Series and PS5.
Esto lo va a petar.
If you want some isometric stuff involving ninjas and samurai and
Shadow
wizards
Tactics,
and
una
goblins, there's also
expansión.
Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun Aiko's Choice, which was released back in 2021 to some excellent reviews, and now it's hitting PS5 and Xbox Series.
Vale.
Dogman Mission Impossible sounds like it could be a kooky indie game, but it's actually based on the massively lucrative children's graphic novel series from the creator of Captain Underpants, which is about to become a major motion picture. But first, it's on
Este me mola visualmente, pero creo que es un runner. O sea, es simplemente correr y saltar. A ver, este es el primero que jugaremos seguro, ¿vale? De lo que sale en diciembre, el Indiana Jones es el primero que jugaremos segurísimo.
After a dog, there's also Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on the 9th. If we're being completely honest, I've had a really hard time finding a game that clicked for me this year, and I'm trying not to get my hopes up about this one too much, but the more I hear, the more optimistic I am. Apologies if you've heard all this ad nauseum since it was announced, but for starters, it's from Machine Games, a studio that has a pretty solid track record for games where you f**k up Nazis, having been the developers behind the most recent Wolfensteins. Meanwhile, the studio was founded by ex-Starbreeze devs who worked on some notable first-person games that just so happen to be based on established licensed properties, namely Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, and The Darkness. An Indiana Jones game that's just Wolfenstein and a fedora would bury the whole archaeology element, so it's reassuring to hear the Great Circle is as much an adventure game as it is an action game with plenty of puzzles and exploration. Anyway, Monument Valley sounds like somewhere Indiana Jones.
Es verdad, el de Netflix.
The third installment of that beloved puzzle game will be coming to Netflix games on the 10th. If you're feeling nostalgic for some good old-fashioned turn-of-the-century gaming, you can raise some hell and party like it's 1999 and also 2001, when Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2
Qué juegazo Soul Reaver, tío.
Basically everything. If you'd like to go back a little further to the more colorful halcyon days of the 16-bit,
¡Bof!
there's also Mighty
Ganaza,
Power Rangers Ritas Rewind, which is giving Angel Grove
Ganaza de este, tío.
revenge treatment with an old-school side-scrolling co-op beat-em-up. The added wrinkle here is that there are some rad Mode 7 superscalar-style levels. If you're curious about this one, I put together a video preview a few weeks back. I liked what I saw. Anyway, both those games are on all the current consoles plus PC. Finally, on December 10th, Prime Video's secret-level animated anthology series premieres, which...
Le tengo una gana a esta serie. O sea, ahora que ha acabado Arcane, le tengo una gana a esta puta serie. Madre mía.
It's kind of like Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots, except it's based on existing video game IP, which makes sense because a lot of Love, Death, and Robots was basically CGI trailers for non-existent video games made by Blur Studios, a production house that got famous for making some of the best CGI game trailers of E3's past, and now they have gone full circle, making CGI shorts about video games. The holidays are supposed to be all about the spirit of...
Oh, el juego español este en stop motion, Tío, se juntan muchos juegos en muy pocos días, ¿no? El Indiana Jones era el día 9. Hemos visto para el día 10 el Power Rangers. Ahora este para el 12. Joder, vaya semana, tú. Vaya puta semana.
Giving, but what if they were about the spirit of the samurai? That is a 2D stop-motion action adventure that looks a little bit like Sekiro running on the Kubo and the 2 Strings engine. That's on PC on the 12th.
Joder.
Also on PC a day later is Bronana, a very appealing roguelite survival game that looks like a bunch of fun. If you're good on potassium but want something with a little more protein, there's also Meat Absolute Zero, which is a nice, juicy, red-blooded boomer shooter, also on PC, also on the 13th. If you're more into leafy greens and non-violence, Botney Manor may be more your speed. That hit PC, Switch, and Xbox earlier this year, and on the 17th it is coming to PS4 and PS5.
Sale el 10, Secret Devil, sí. La putada de la serie es que sale semanalmente, no sale entera. O sea, salen 2 capítulos en la primera semana y luego progresivamente. Me jode porque me gustaría meterme el vicio del día entero, pero bueno. Sale por... O sea, semanalmente, vaya.
But it's not remotely scary and nothing tries to kill you. You're just making flowers grow and exploring an old house. It's very nice. If that sounds like boring old lady bullshit, prefer a video game.
Que además son 15 episodios. Como pongan uno a la semana, va a ser bastante largo. Hasta febrero está eso, O febrero, marzo incluso. O sea que, no sé. A ver qué tal. Otro que sale, por si no lo sabéis, es la temporada 3 de Marvel What If. Lo de qué pasaría si del 22 de diciembre al 29 la temporada 3. O sea que en diciembre tenemos 2 series de estas interesantes.
Where you and 31 other people try to avoid getting murdered, there's also Squid Game Unleashed, the multiplayer party royale based on the massively popular Netflix series, which I think.
Claro, un capítulo por día hubiera estado bien, por ejemplo. Un capítulo cada día o 5 a la semana y ahí estás todo el mes con la serie. Bueno, pero 1 o 2 a la semana me parece muy poco.
On the 19th, you can let your favorite
Bopintón,
VR
¿eh?
headset give your face a hug in Alien Rogue Incursion. This is the first official VR game set in that dark corner of
Pintón
space
tiene
where
esto.
no one can hear you scream, though I guess really that's all of space, and people will almost definitely hear you scream playing this game in VR. That Amanda Ripley was stuck
Este
with,
pinta de
plus
puta
it'll be
madre.
less isolated because you've got an artificial
El
person
Rogue
keeping you company
Incursion.
while you- It's not a game release, but it's obviously game adjacent. 3 hits.
Sonic 3, pintón.
Another high-profile actor who first appeared in Cyberpunk 27. If you like the idea of having white knuckles at what's lurking in the dark shadows,
¿Y
on the
esto?
27th on air hits PC. This is a first-person indie survival horror puzzle adventure that has you stuck in a creepy hotel during a hurricane in 1969, and there's some other weird stuff staying there as well. The Wolf Among Us 2 is also expected at some point in 2024, though considering it was announced way back in 2019, I can't help but feel a little bit boy who cried wolf on the matter at this point.
Tío, si en los Game Awards se anuncia el episodio 1 de Wolf Among Us 2 ya disponible, sería un pelotazo, ¿eh? Sería brutal. Y luego tienen tiempo para hacer lo siguiente, ¿sabes? Pero sacar el primero, ¡bof!
And with that, 2024's biggest game releases are behind us. I will be back in the new year with a look ahead at what's to come in January.
Yo qué sé, a ver, no es el mejor mes, evidentemente. En cuanto a lanzamientos, no es el más grande, el más intenso. Pero está bien, o sea, es un mes decente. Tiene un par de cosas chulas. Y luego ya, pues, un poco de tiempo libre, ¿no? Para jugar otras cosas y demás. Está bien. No todo tiene que ser saturación, ¿sabes? Es un mes tranquilito. Hay 2-3 juegos chulos. Y luego ya un poquito más de calma. La verdad.